Hello and welcome to My Shot of Life with your co-hosts, Steven
and Victor.
On this week's episode, we will be discussing tribalism. If you're not familiar with tribalism, it's more or less taking sides of an argument or an ideology. And this week we'll be sipping on Blanton's original single barrel bourbon. One of the bourbons we've had in the reserve that we've been wanting to bring out. Victor's got 3 different types, but today we're going to be doing the single barrel original. Later we will be presenting our recurring segment, Toilet Talk, where today we'll be discussing pooping and farting at the workplace. And to wrap things up for this episode, we will recap our thoughts and ratings on the Blanton's single barrel original bourbon. So Vic, to start things off, cheers. Get a good sip of this. Ooh. Kicks you a little bit, but it's not bad. I do like that smell. Kind of settles in pretty nice.
Has a little bit of sweetness, but for
yeah,
the
it
most
does.
part, it's a straightforward single barrel.
Yeah. I think you can taste like you're saying, maybe like a little bit of citrusy, an orange type, but it's very faint. It's like an upfront taste, and at the end, it's straight bourbon.
Oh yeah.
All right. So getting into tribalism, this is something that I've thought about pretty in depth, or at least I'd like to think I have. I've seen a lot of it recently. I think it's something we're all susceptible to, right, Vic?
I know nothing about tribalism.
Okay, so a tribe is whenever I dress up like the cowboy and you dress up like the Indian, and then I'm better than you.
Whoa, that's one inappropriate.
Whoa, we're talking about sports here.
But I think that's a good place to start, actually.
What, sports?
No, the Cowboys and Indians part.
Yeah.
Because I think to understand tribalism, especially like what it is at its core, is to understand that, the word tribe has been used for, hundreds of thousands of years.
Sure.
To describe different groups of people together. And so at its very meaning, tribalism is kind of a coming together of people with, or even groups, animals, whatever you want to call them. We call them groups or packs or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's that coming together for, quote unquote, the greater good of that society. So dating back however long the earth has been around, animals and people have come together in a tribe-like manner. Regardless of whether or not they have similar ideologies, they've come together in order to survive.
Right, and I think that was probably just the origin of it in itself, is that a tribe would be your local group of people. So this is before structured civilization took place, and before we could actually start an economy. It was probably your local 5 or 6 people who were out there hunting and fishing and gathering food for the family or for the people that are close to you, and then keeping each other safe. So that's probably the origins of the tribe, is basically just sticking with your tribe through thick and thin, no matter what, in order to survive. And then we've seen it now evolve, is a way to say it, evolve into different topics, ideologies, and I don't know what else. Mindsets
that people
sure.
might have. I think the 3 main ones that we'll touch on today are religion, politics, and fanhood for things like sports.
Yeah.
So a couple, very different and drastic topics here.
What specifically to you have you seen in our life or in our system is tribal?
Yeah, I think to hit on 2, I know sports is kind of our bread and butter here, and that's what we're going to stick to our guns in that sense. But to talk about religion and politics a little bit, at least in my experiences growing up as a Roman Catholic, it was extremely interesting to, once you kind of develop that free thought that you're going to church and you're going through all of these routines and you have to do this because of this, and that's just the way you're taught and raised, whether it be at home or in church or in Sunday school or whatever it might have been for your religion. Going through those motions, and that's exactly what it is, or it was to me at least, was going through the motions. And you think back to the days of the Crusades and these people going through these motions for their specific religious ideologies. Both sides of that war were fought with the thinking that they were right
Right, that their religion was the one true religion, I guess.
Correct. And so I think the extremism of this idea of tribalism takes place when you put yourself in front of others, like your personal survival in front of others. And so you have these two groups that were putting their personal survival and their beliefs, the beliefs of their tribe, ahead of the survival of everyone, just because you believe something different. So it's this idea of belief. With religion, in all religions, it's belief. Nothing is tangible in the idea of religion. It's faith-based.
Right, and I think we could all be accepting of each other's faith.
Right.
Not to say that you should not be faithful or even be religious, but the fact of acknowledging that someone may have a different ideology than you.
Yeah, and so growing up, specifically Roman Catholic, not just Catholic, but Roman Catholic, it was really interesting to see, how extreme that could get at times, and how you were taught specific things, and until you actually got out in the world and asked questions.
Yeah.
I had friends who were Methodist or Protestant or whatever, and a lot of these are different parts of, or not Catholicism, but Christianity, and so you have under the same blanket of religion,
right,
so many different ideas coming in. And so,
and I'm sure it's interesting how, I don't know any of the history of how different sects of religion began, but it's funny to see that there are so many denominations of Methodist, Baptist, Latter-day Saints, Lutheranism. I think it's ridiculous. I imagine there's always a story behind each one. Maybe someone was in a church and then, what if this was actually true instead of that? And, they deviate and create their own church. Again, I don't know anything about this, so that might be complete and utter nonsense, what I'm saying. But that's at least what it sounds like had probably happened, is that someone maybe did some critical thinking on their own and established their own sect of the religion. Did you, whenever you were in I guess, heavy in going to church, did your parents or did anyone at church ever tell you about people in different religions, more not necessarily Islam or anything like that, but anybody in a different denomination? Did they ever not warn you, but hey, well, these people believe in that, so just watch out?
No, there was never any sort of influence like that. It was just more so, I guess it was, this is what we do. It wasn't like, this is why we do it. It was always, this is what you're supposed to do. And I think there was a day in church that they changed something up where, like, no longer are supposed to kneel here. You're just supposed to bow your head or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, wait, why? Like, who cares? What's the why?
Yeah, if it's been like this for thousands of years or hundreds of years or whatever, and then now today we're gonna do it differently.
Yeah,
it's
and like
what?
Why? I don't understand. Is it just to exert like your power over the congregation and say, okay, this has come down from this guy named the Pope.
Yeah,
and like he said, we have to do this.
Well,
now.
in the past, I feel like that's been an issue where people in power in those power positions might have manipulated it. I'm sure you can go and do your own research on that. And I do know that popes used to be able to run militaries. And so they obviously fixed that issue because of how much power a pope would have over a nation or nations. So that's interesting.
Yeah. At its very, substance, religion is tribalism.
Yeah.
Tribalism is religion.
I know when we grew up, I didn't touch on it, or I didn't even ask much whenever I was younger, like, why is there a different church, like, not even a mile down the road, you could walk to the next church. We're in the South, so there's, in the Bible Belt, there's tons of churches in every single county and every town. They're everywhere. Why is there a church here, and then why is there a church over there? Why aren't we all in the same church together? For some reason, I guess I thought about that. I never asked anyone about that, and I felt like I really might have learned something, or at least learned something about the people if I would have asked more questions as a kid growing up, because it is interesting.
Yeah, and those are the things as a kid you don't necessarily care about, not to be offensive to anyone.
Yeah. But whenever you're a kid, you're like, oh, I gotta go to church again.
Yeah, exactly.
No offense to anyone who likes going to church. It's just when you're a kid, you're like, oh my God, like I could be doing something fun right now.
I like how you said, oh my God, and we're talking about not wanting to go to church.
Yeah, that's not good.
But no, I think with religion, we can kind of put a cap on it, I guess. I know we have a guest that we'd like to have on in the future whose whole background involves religion, and so if we want to get down that path, I think we definitely want to save some content.
I did want to just bring up that we were always told, any of my parents are listening to this podcast and I'm wrong, call me out on it, that's fine. I'll do a redaction on this whole episode. That Mormons were, obviously wrong. I felt like that was kind of implied. I don't know if that was ever said specifically, but who are they? Why would you think they're right? They've only been around for a few hundred years, or a couple hundred years maybe.
What's his name? John Smith?
Granny Smith, I think. He founded the caramel apple under the tree where he could read I guess he could read tablets or a plate or something like. I don't want to get into that, but so Mormons who are listening to this, sorry.
Sorry for my upbringing.
Sorry for my upbringing, but that's just kind of what we thought, or at least our families thought, because it was a newer religion, and why would it be right if we've been believing this for longer than you?
Yeah, so I hate change.
Touching on that's a good discussion on
the idea of tribalism and religion. Right. Everybody who at least is involved in their religions, it's like,
you want yours to be right,
and you will support the tribe. Basically,
how
much free thought is there actually?
Right, you were raised in it, so why else would you want to? Why else would you not want to defend it? I guess is my.
And I think it's going to come down. I think with all of these, with the exception of sports, I guess, it's a belief system, and everybody is going to believe what they believe, and that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And so they have their belief, and it's supported by these other people, and so it's like, hey, let's hang out with them and go to church.
Well, that doesn't mean that you can't deviate, or you can't leave that belief system. So if you're raised in it, doesn't mean you can't change your mind about something. Right. But I do think that you are very inclined to stay.
Yeah.
Once you become comfortable in that skin or around these types of people, you're likely going to stay in a system that you think you're accepted.
And I think that's a good transition into the world of politics. Being comfortable with something, and you have these other people supporting you in your endeavors with what you believe. Some politics, factually based, obviously. You can support one thing and not support another, and it's not necessarily your belief. It's just like X harms Y people, and so that is a fact. And so I choose to support the opposite of X, which helps
pollution,
Y people.
Maybe.
Sure.
But then you could also have an argument.
It's like scientific. That's where
no.
You're right. That's where tribalism is most extreme.
Well, it's not.
Right?
I'm not necessarily saying climate change. I'm just saying pollution, as in smog.
Smog.
That the creature from the Hobbit movie.
Smog.
So close. I think that's where they got the name from.
Probably.
Because he could breathe fire.
Dirty,
could he breathe toxic gas?
Dirty and bad.
But no. What I'm saying is that smog in itself for big cities like LA, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what's the place in Japan that has so much? Is it Tokyo? What's the place where
I know China has a lot.
Or was it in China where they would have the day where you can't
they'd
use
have a couple days where you weren't allowed, and they would take pictures when the sky was clear.
Right, all the smog would just disappear because no burning of oils or I guess fossil fuels or anything. I mean, that's in itself, that's crazy, but it would be hard to find someone who would be in favor of something like smog or not smog.
I love smog.
Now I'm locked into this smog pollution. Yeah. Besides big business,
I think and it's not even that they're pro smog or dang it.
It's just they're
pollution.
Yeah.
It's that it either benefits them or they just don't care.
It doesn't more of a hassle,
right? It doesn't impact them directly and immediately, and so they don't care.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Because again, who would be against something that is harmful to all people? No one's in favor of it hurting people, but they're not, I guess, against it because it's harmful to them and their business, potentially. So that's an example of what we're throwing out, but more specifically, or I guess in a more broader sense, rather, we're looking at staying left or staying right no matter what. Yeah. Because your side believes one thing, some people tend to feel like they have to adopt those ideologies to say that they're a part of that party.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
Yeah. Why do you have to do that? It's absurd to me.
Have some, again, it's that idea of like free thought.
Think for yourself.
Yeah, think for yourself.
Take some responsibility on yourself, and then think about the issues and what actually matters to you. And if it falls into that category that they believe in, okay, that's fine.
Cool.
But don't pick something just because everybody's picking something. That's what I hate the most. It's just like music.
There's what do you got? Groupthink going on. You've got
little bit of
confirmation bias. You've got all.
Oh, that's the worst. I'm glad you brought that up,
Yeah.
because groupthink leads into, once you get into groupthink, you're like, okay, this has to be the only way. Then you only find evidence that supports your claim, which is confirmation bias, and it further puts you away from the idea or the position of being neutral in most senses, because you're only finding information that supports that one belief or that one idea. So it's a bad idea for everybody, I think, personally. I mean, do you think there's any benefit out of that?
No. I think everybody just needs to like think for themselves. That's what it all comes down to, is like going straight to the facts, going straight to the information, and not just relying on hearsay or.
I know.
I mean,
it's sometimes easier to say it though than actually apply it.
Yeah.
Because even if I run across an article, that article is likely going to have some bias to it, right? And so I might be susceptible to some subconscious, the way I'm reading it, it's convincing me to believe in this in a way that I didn't think I was believing in it, because I might not know, I don't have all the information.
Right.
We talked about opinions before, but the big issue is, am I getting all the information? And am I comprehending the information that I got?
And, to look into it from like a scientific perspective, for every, 10 articles, scholarly articles, I should say, you find on, proving one theory, you'll find 5 that try to disprove it and may even successfully disprove it.
Flat Earth.
I mean, the Earth obviously is flat. Have you ever seen the Earth before?
You know what? I never have, and I don't know if I will. Maybe.
You're being.
If we just shrink it into like something really like a marble size, we'll know, but we won't ever be able to do that.
Marbles are flat.
There you go.
So from the political perspective, I think we saw a ton of that back in, what year was it? 2016?
2016.
Gosh, it's so far away.
I know it started 2018.
Crazy. Well, Trump's been in office for almost a full year, a couple days from now, or, from the day of recording, weeks? I should say.
Wait, when was it, in February?
He was inaugurated end of January last
year.
Oh,
okay.
A day that will live in infamy.
Yeah.
But, you saw that so much in this election. People just latching on to the extreme ends of the political spectrum and going along with what they heard and what they read. And, as much as I hate the idea of fake news and the attack on the media, some of that attack was just, at least in my opinion. It's just like the specific outlets, regardless, you have your Fox and your CNN, those are the two extremes. And so they presented what they wanted to present. And so the people who already aligned in those areas, if you were right on the right, not right is incorrect. I am saying if you were on the right of the political spectrum, you watched Fox News, everything you thought was confirmed. If you were on the left, you watched CNN, and everything you thought was confirmed. And so that doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
Not everyone, but I get your sentiment is that if that's all you want to hear is that you're right, you're going to stay on your side, and you're going to listen to it, and you're going to listen to it, and you're going to reinforce those ideas no matter what. One of the big terms that came out of this election was echo chamber. And that is exactly what you're saying, is that you're reinforcing your ideas. You're listening to the same people spit the same stuff day in, day out, and then it just gives you more of a confirmation bias on what you're believing.
Yeah.
Right?
And you're sticking to your tribe. That's your safety net.
What we're trying to say is venture out, keep an open mind in what you read and what you see. Maybe you don't tweet right away.
Yeah.
because there's already bad examples out there, so don't be the bad example.
Put it in your drafts folder. Although,
Even though Twitter can read that.
yeah, even though Twitter can read everything in your drafts, every DM you've ever sent. So watch yourself.
Yeah, and you guys can look into that as well. Twitter talked about how they have access to everything on your profile, which, read your terms of service as well, which no one does. And the two people at this table definitely have not done.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it, I knew what I was getting into when I got on Twitter, and I absolutely love Twitter, and I don't care. Like, I mean, if they want to stare at naughty pictures of me, like, go for it. What are you going to do, ruin my life because I sent very appropriate messages in a DM?
Oh, is that sarcasm?
Yes, very sarcastic. I've never done anything like that before.
All right. So, again, to reinforce what we're saying,
read and discuss. Don't argue.
One of the best quotes I read the other day, maybe not even heard or read, but I think I heard it on a video. It was, don't ever go into a conversation where you're trying to win the conversation. And to me, it resonates to me because there are times where I feel like I'm on the defensive right out the gate. And instead of being on the defensive, listen to what that person has to say, and then just take it in. And I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't challenge that person, I don't think, but don't make it that you're, I don't know, don't be aggressive about it. Maybe I don't know really the best way to put it in words.
Yeah, I think, and part of that is, I like a probing method when I'm conversing with people for either the first time or non-invasive probing, I should preface. When you're conversing either the first time or with someone and you're talking about, their opinion or certain ideologies or beliefs, and you question things in a respectful manner. You don't question, why do you believe this? It's more along the lines of, I guess, asking, like I said, those probing questions and finding out how they got to think in the way that they currently think about
so what
subject.
led you to believe?
Yeah, and part of its tone of voice too, where you don't want to offend them. You just want to learn. You need to go into the conversation, like Steven said, not challenging them, not trying to win the conversation, but trying to understand the person you're having the conversation with.
I mean, everyone's got their own belief and their own ideas. Doesn't mean they're wrong, doesn't mean you're right.
I'm always right.
Well, our third part of this discussion, Mr. Wright, sports, and how bad Pittsburgh sports are.
Dude.
Is that what we're talking about?
We'll probably get into that at some point, but...
I mean, we can get into it
now.
Because
I just recently had a tribalism revelation in the world of Pittsburgh sports.
Oh, that you abandoned the tribe.
I have.
Too bad you're not a Cleveland Indians fan, because that would be perfect.
Literal tribe, not the Cleveland Indians, but a different team.
The Pirates.
Yeah.
You rightfully so. They disrespect their fans in a sense that they just don't care about them.
They don't. They refuse to spend money, and so I grew up in Pittsburgh. I wasn't born there, but I was raised there and grew up around the sports, and my parents are from there. And so I've always loved the idea of the tribal Pittsburgh sports fan is, it is, they say people bleed black and gold, and Pittsburgh is one of the few cities with major league sports teams that all have the same color scheme of black and gold or black and yellow. And they say, oh, we bleed black and gold. And, it was something I grew up with. And over time, I came to realize that some people it's a little much for some people, but I loved baseball. I played it growing up, and just really enjoyed watching the Pirates. They were terrible, absolutely terrible for almost my entire life, up until like 2013. They made the playoffs for the first time almost in my lifetime. They made the playoffs, I think, when I was 2 years old, and then when I was like 22 years old. So it was a long time. But, I stuck with them through losing seasons. I would have season tickets while I was in college because the stadium was so close to where I went to school. And so, you stick with them. And I loved watching them in the playoffs. And they throw out these pretty solid players and make decent runs at the playoffs. And, this year was the final straw for me. They signed a guy, Andrew McCutcheon, one of the best in the game, both a player and as a person. He's done wonders for the city of Pittsburgh. And it was frustrating because, especially for him, as a fan, great, but for him, they signed the guy to a, decent contract. He probably could have made more, but they tell him, we're going to build a team around you. We're going to spend money to build a team around you, and they never did. A few days ago, they trade their number one starting pitcher and Andrew McCutcheon and get crap prospects back, and it's like, what are you doing? So I've officially abandoned.
So I have to ask you then. I'm a big sports fan too, but since you are actually going through this process, what makes you so invested in something that you have no purpose in?
Yeah.
If that makes any sense,
Well, I will ask you the same question in a different manner in a little bit. But
okay.
For me, born into it. You're born into that belief system, and things differ along the way. I grew up an Alabama Crimson Tide fan, which is terrible to say now because you think, oh, bandwagon fan.
Right, immediately.
But I was literally born, 45 minutes outside of Tuscaloosa. Yeah. So that's kind of where
was your dad a
affiliated.
football fan at that point?
My dad was a football fan, and in Alabama there are no professional football teams. So you could argue that Alabama Crimson Tide are pretty much professional, but it's beside the point. So I grew up, with black and gold in my blood in Pittsburgh, and my parents are from there, and so it was just kind of ingrained from birth, I would say. I did go through a phase where I was younger. I have an older brother, and he was a Steelers fan at the time. He is now currently a Browns fan. Don't ask me.
Ooh.
I don't know how or why he would do that to himself.
He just
probably
likes losing.
Just to be different.
He's one of the special people who like to be outside of the tribe.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's the thing too. I think you maybe you get so accustomed to the tribe, you're like, this is getting kind of repetitive.
Yeah.
Maybe I can just venture something out and be different and find a new tribe that is more accepting of me. What do you think about being in a tribe, but then being the lower, like at the bottom of the totem pole on the tribe? Do you think that would lead you to be more susceptible to exiting, and then that's why something like that happens?
I guess I'm struggling to understand. I mean, me as like a fan, especially one who doesn't even live in the general vicinity of the Pirates currently, I would say played a factor. That was one of my reasons that I told you for changing my baseball affiliation from the Pittsburgh Pirates to I'm taking my talents to
the
DC area. Go Nats.
You heard it here, guys. Live. Actually not live, but recorded. But this is in January 2018. Victor, if he's not a Nationals fan next year, we will shame him.
Yeah.
Online and over the podcast.
So I'm now a Washington Nationals fan. Part of that is through my current job takes me to DC a decent amount, and I've actually been to more Nationals games than I've been to Pirates games over the last 3 or 4 years. It just kind of made sense for me. They had a guy out of NC State get drafted there, and he's come up through the ranks and played really well for them as well.
So clearly sports mean a lot to you.
They do.
You've watched it since you were a kid. You grew up in the area of your favorite teams, and then so you hold some allegiance to this team. But why?
So part of it is sunk cost.
I think that's a good point. I actually think that's a really good point.
Easily, out of all the Pittsburgh sports teams, the Pirates would have been the most to lose.
Yeah.
Because you watch them lose for so long and stand by them, and then all of a sudden...
Well, you know what? It makes it that much better when they win. It really does.
I agree.
You go through the hard times.
Years were,
it's the most exciting. Because when your team is winning year in and year out. So if you're an Alabama fan right now, your expectation is to be in the championship or at least in the playoff every year. What kind of expectation is that on your team? That's a big expectation.
It is.
So for someone who goes through a hardship of losing, sees through a decade or many decades, it makes it so much stronger, and I would say even the bond can be tougher between people who lose a lot and then have that big win as opposed to those people who just win consistently. You look at Dodgers fans. I don't know anything about Dodgers fans, but I mean, I guess you could even make the argument Alabama fans now. There's probably tons of people who are like, oh, I love Alabama. Oh, they're so good. UNC basketball. Oh, they're so good. Oh my God. From North Carolina, I love them because they win all these games. But when they lose, where you at? Where you at? You here?
I don't see you on Twitter.
Where you at? You at Walmart getting your T-shirt?
Actually, yeah,
you ain't here.
I do see them on Twitter blaming the referees.
Consistently. Them and UNC and Duke fans are especially...
And literally every single person in the NFL, with the exception of Patriots fans, blame the referees.
Would you say that they benefit from that for some reason?
Yeah.
No, I think we're deviating a little bit from the tribe, and then we're kind of backing that being in a tribe is fun. But
sports is so unique in the idea of tribalism, though.
Well, it is, because I wonder if it's a substitute. If it's a substitute for what the consequences of tribalism would be outside of sports.
Yeah. I mean, you are not personally impacted by the results of sports unless you're betting on them. But
yeah,
don't do that. It's illegal most of the time. Personally, it's your escape. You can go and escape the real world with other people who are like-minded and believe in a team and support a team. And so, win or lose, you're going to have that support group with you, and it's not going to impact. You're going to be sad for like a day, right? Oh, no,
yeah.
The team lost the championship. Okay.
I mean, that might last longer, depending on if you're a Pirates fan or not.
Yeah. We haven't had any championships.
Well, yeah, but if you were in the
man.
championship to lose, it would probably hurt. Unless it felt great to just be there. I mean, I am a Red Sox fan, not was.
And that's where I wanted to turn that question back on to you. So having basically no affiliation with the Red Sox.
You mean by never living in Boston ever in my life?
Sports at their very core are a location-based game, or location-based tribe, I should say, where you're born or where you're raised or whatever.
It represents
you
and your
that
city,
is your sports team,
and the people that live in that city.
Yeah, and so I adopt a secondary team in hockey because I now live in Raleigh, and so I want to support the Canes. Cool.
Yeah,
that's great. But you, born and raised North Carolina, Boston Red Sox fan.
Boston Red Sox, and man, I mean I think that's a good question, but again, I would have to pull the answer out from you, is that I was raised a fan. Even though you happen to be in the area, it was the same for me, where my dad just watched the games, loved the team, and I just followed them. I think it was more of a bonding thing. So I grew up playing baseball a little bit, and we would watch it because that's what we would do in our spare time, was watch games. Having that be one of those things that brings us together, I think it meant a lot to me growing up. And my mom even remarried a guy who was a Red Sox fan, so she, I guess she apparently was into Boston Red Sox baseball too, big enough that she had to find another guy who was. I was lucky enough to have a mom, or two moms and two dads, who were both into Boston Red Sox baseball, and I had that. Growing up with me growing up with them, rather, I was able to experience all these games together with them. We would even go out to Boston, and we would go to Baltimore. We would go up into Florida, different states, just to watch the Red Sox play. And to me, it just felt like it was a way to connect with my family. We could talk stats, and we could talk the game, and we could hate on the Yankees together. And that's something that I thought about too, was the group hate of another team. Is it a real true hatred, or is it actually just a game that we're playing in our own lives?
I think that's one of the more remarkable things. Is I've always considered myself a rational person, and I'm sure a lot of other people do as well, but sports is one of those things that can bring out the absolute worst in people.
Yeah.
And so I think there is a genuine hatred when you look at certain people within the tribes. There are, the extremists and the people who know how to dial it back.
Right, the ones who will run their mouth the entire game.
Yeah.
And then those who will casually give you some shit the next day and as a joke. And
absolutely. Definitely one of my favorite things. And that's,
think it's a lot of
if you're
people's
going to do
things.
that, you have to go in with the understanding that you've got to be able to take it too.
Yeah, that can become an issue.
But those are rational sports fans, Stephen.
I would say so. I mean, we have seen some diehard sports fans who are a little bit over the edge.
Oh yeah.
I've seen some crazy Snapchats, but I think the craziest thing is people who, and I'll even bring up soccer because soccer ends up being the most
Some of the
tribal sport
Yeah,
in my
absolutely.
opinion. I don't know much about cricket. I know cricket's a very big sport across other countries that might get pretty rowdy too, but soccer in particular, I mean, there are stadiums where you have to leave right when the game's over with, and then the other team, the away team, has to stay in the soccer stadium for another hour.
Yeah, flanked
before they
on
can
both
leave.
sides by the stewards, and they hire for rivalry games, they'll hire more people to watch the crowd.
Right, so no one's
the
getting
stewards
hurt.
in the
Yeah.
crowd to block people off.
I mean, that's where it gets a little bit ridiculous.
I mean, I think what's crazy too. So a couple years ago, we went to a friendly match in the DC area. It was the USA against Peru, and in the upper deck there were two separate supporters groups for two different Peruvian domestic teams. They were there to support their country, right, playing the United States, but they could not set aside their domestic differences because they supported different squads. They fought in the stands in the upper deck
no.
and had to be broken up.
Just those two people. No,
Not
they,
people, groups.
group.
They
There was
s-
groups of different
So there
sects
were-
of that country.
Yeah, there were
sections
domestic clubs within Peru.
who were both supporting the Peru
they
national
were supporting
team.
the national team, but
But
they
they were-
supported different domestic clubs within Peru,
That's insane.
and they decided to fight each other.
And
at
the
a
U.S.
game
people were probably just shaking
where
their
they
head like,
should have
"What
come
is going
together
on?"
to support their country. Come on.
Right, so that's the same thing as the LA Galaxy and what's the New York team?
Denver Broncos,
No, the LA Galaxy and some other.
the Red Bulls.
Yeah, New York Red Bulls. Is that right?
Sure.
So that's like them being in the stands and then looking at each other and be like, "Well, screw you. You believe in that. You like that team. Oh, well, even though we're here to support the USA, and
We're gonna
that
fight.
makes no sense.
Yeah.
Makes no sense. But hey, man, I don't know. I did read a very prolific quote today. That I
Another
wanted.
one. You've already laid one on us.
Did I?
Yeah. Let's do
Oh.
another one. Bring it on.
I don't know what the other one was, but this one. Oh yeah, I
Don't
remember
try
the
to-
other one.
yeah.
Got it. Okay, so today I read one from professor of University of Virginia. So one of our rivals, or one of our ACC
Opponents.
opponents, Jonathan Haidt. So if I'm saying this wrong, I apologize. His quote was, "Morality, by its very nature, makes it hard to study morality. It binds people together into teams that seek victory, not truth. It closes hearts and minds to opponents, even as it makes cooperation and decency possible within groups."
That's excellent.
Yeah, so comparing morality to tribalism, same thing. It brings together, like, you have the same. I mean, we get this dopamine rush when our team wins, and we freak out, and we feel a part of this whole group. But then it also closes us out to certain ideologies that exist outside of our circle.
Yeah.
How would you say, if we're gonna close this segment out? I know we can dig in a lot deeper than this. For the sake of time, would you say that tribalism is overall a benefit to society or a detriment?
That's a great question. Currently, I believe it to be a detriment, but I believe we would not be where we are today and in an advanced society that we are now without tribalism.
Okay. I'll have a little bit longer answer because I think it's almost impossible to answer that question. By having so much tribalism, if everything was tribal, it'd be my country versus your country, my beliefs versus your beliefs, and we could go back to the wars that you were bringing up. We're fighting over ideologies, and our thoughts are superior to yours, and so you won't switch your thought process or what you believe in to mine. I'll annihilate you, right? And that's an extreme version of that. But then on the other side, if you don't have some sort of loyalty to a tribe that you exist in, I don't know if you have any loyalty at all.
What are you waking up every day fighting for?
Right. What is your purpose? So we'll leave you with that one.
Boom.
and segue into the poop mobile driving down the road to the toilet talk.
Poopmobile into toilet talk.
Okay. Today's toilet talk is brought to you by Depends. Sometimes you gotta poop. It just depends.
Nice. Also, they're not a sponsor.
They're not. Sorry, Depends.
But
if it paid off, I want some of that cash money. You know what I'm saying?
If any toilet related company,
if the sales boost as these podcasts are released and we see a spike in toilet paper activity, I'm talking like ply goes up,
more
ply
people
purchases
using
go
toilet
up,
paper.
we get nice toilet seats, where the squatty potties. I want to see some cash.
We
need to get like for all the followers out there, we don't have names for you guys yet. Maybe write like an essay, show like a bar graph, show us something. No, the line graph would be better. Let's see some like activity of like toilet sales increasing in the local RDU area. But anyways, going to our topic, we're talking about pooping at work, pooping and farting.
That's right.
And your stance.
So, it's tough. It's a tough thing. I think we can start with farting because that just seems to be more, you're surrounded by people more often when that is occurring.
Oh, man. And we work in an area where there's, I guess, cubes, in a sense.
And you've got a lot of people, and you're occasionally in conference rooms with people, and in meetings.
And the worst is when you're at a client site.
Yeah, and at a client site, absolutely. So, I mean, I am of the belief that, you got to know your own body. So I know when I've got some gas developing, whether or not it's going to be, stinky.
What?
Or it's going to be like, not so bad. I can let this out. No one's even going to know. So I know my body pretty well. I know things that, make gas inside of me. So like I avoid eating those things on a pretty regular basis when I know I'm going to be around people. So my philosophy is to hold it in as long as you can, step out of the room. A lot of folks will, at least in my experience, going into public restrooms, you're sitting there at a urinal doing your business, and all of a sudden you just hear someone let it rip from the urinal next to you, and it's like they were holding that in the whole day.
All day, dude. And then it just reeks.
Yeah, they didn't want to disrupt their, work environment and the people around them, so they...
I mean, we could even get into using the bathroom at work or passing gas in the bathroom at work. I mean, that's even fart at a urinal in the bathroom.
I'm not going to lie. Some of the funniest, things that have happened to me at work, I can't help but laugh.
I don't know why it's so funny, but even though, you're in an area where you would expect it, it kind of still surprises you when someone farts at a urinal at work. Yeah. And you're just like, damn, that was pretty good. That's funny.
It's what makes it a little funny as well. Not farting is hilarious in general. I mean, we haven't discussed this yet, but
nope. But
farting has been and always will be funny, unless it happens to you and you're like the president or something and you fart into a microphone.
Dude, that would actually be really funny.
But you have that shared thought of like, they know they've been holding that fart in all day.
Oh, yeah.
And they finally get into the bathroom and they're like, screw this. Bam! And they just let it out.
Dude, and when you get real squirmy at the desk, you ever see somebody getting squirmy and you know they got a fart. And they're trying to just like pinch it off. Because like if you lift that leg up, you can kind of seep it out. And I'm getting a little bit detailed here, but you can just let it seep out and then no one's going to know. But then if you lift that leg up, if someone's staring at that leg, they know what's going on. Oh, yeah. But those tend to be the real bad ones.
Speaking of knowing what's going on, pooping at work. You're surrounded by other people, right?
I don't like it.
Absolutely. You're out of your comfort zone. You're not in your normal toilet situation, especially going to different clients.
Oh, no.
Because we've gotten used to the ones that we have in our office.
Yeah, but still.
It's still weird.
Okay, so I'll bring this up. I don't have a formal list of requirements that are necessary for me to use the bathroom in a client, but I can tell you off the top of my head what I would deem reasonable for me to use the bathroom. And if it is a single bathroom door that you can lock, then you're golden. And we talked about toilet height before. But if it's a tall toilet seat, I don't know, man. That's tough too. But for me, if you have the privacy of closing a door and locking it and cutting the fan on, you're good. I don't care if you know I'm in there or not, but I can be quiet, or like at least I can drown out the sound. But when you're at a place like it, and there's stalls at work that you go into, and you are inches away from your foot potentially touching someone else's foot, or even knowing that someone else is in the stall beside you or me, dude, that freaks me out. I don't like that at all. I do not like thinking or knowing that someone is in the same room as me while I'm pooping. Hate it. Absolutely hate it. Now, I will say we used to work at this old office that had its own individual stalls with doors and walls. And I'm not talking like little plastic walls that separate each other, but I'm talking walls. So you could potentially hear the person next to you, but you couldn't like touch. There's no way to touch them because the wall is at the bottom.
Yeah, walls,
to the bottom
that went floor to ceiling.
But you could lock your door. There was a window pane, but no one could see.
At the top, yeah.
No one could see you. Yeah, it was golden. It was great.
It was pretty amazing. There were, varying seat heights, and I know we talked about this already, within the individual rooms, you could even call them.
So that plays a role, but
pretty great.
Farting at work, though,
keep it to yourself. That's my...
It's tough, though, man, because, like, for me, at least, when I go to fart, sometimes it's like I'm only sitting down, and, like, when I'm in that position, I have to fart, but if I stand up, I won't have to fart anymore. So if I stand up and walk out to fart, it won't happen. So I sit back down in the chair. 2 minutes later, I feel it bubbling up again. What's going to happen? Do I just let it go and take that risk? I'm going to take that risk. And then I'm going to look at that person looking at me and being like, why'd you fart?
Just stare him down.
Did it seep out at you? Because it didn't.
All right, so what about emergency situations?
Oh, if it's emergency,
no,
then you can run. I think there's no pressure. It's just going to come out, so you're just trying to find a bathroom.
Yeah, you just got to go.
Yeah, that's a little bit different. Now, I'm not talking about, oh man, what is this movie called with Ewan McGregor in it? Trainspotting. That bathroom, disgusting. You seen that?
Yep.
Oh, I don't know about pooping there, but I mean, I guess if you had to, you could. But I think if it's like if it's gonna shoot out of you, any bathroom's good.
Totally agree. Just gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, there you go. That's our take on the subject. As we're ending our podcast, we want to throw out a couple of different future segments that we're considering and have been working on, at least thinking about. We do have fake movie pitches and commercials coming to you.
Absolutely. We're still trying to determine what we're going to call these segments, but for the most part, we have an idea of what they're going to involve. So, fake movie pitches and commercials for products. We've got a Get Off My Lawn segment, which is...
the old man wisdom of the day.
Old man wisdom of the day. Back in my day. Maybe we'll call it Back in My Day or something like that.
Yeah, something like... I think there's a podcast called Back in My Day, though.
But it's going to be along the lines of, if you're familiar with Family Guy, Peter Griffin becomes a news anchor. Has a segment called Grind...
what grinds my
really
gears?
Grinds my gears?
Yeah.
And so it's going to be along those lines, and we're just going to do quick offs of like complaining of something.
Mm-hmm. We
also
love to complain.
As we mentioned with our first official episode where we talked about opinions with Aaron and the need to...
Episode 0.
Not a need to have an opinion, but does everyone have to have an opinion? Do you have to have an opinion on everything? And so we're going to have one-line opinions where we have a subject and we throw the subject out there in the form of a question, and you have 5 words or less to give your opinion on that thing.
And these are all ideas that we've been spitballing recently. If you like the ideas, if you like what we're doing now, want to see more of that, or want to see something different, let us know on Twitter. Let us know on, I don't know what else,
Whatever.
Instagram. If you want to give us some recommendations or some critiques, we're very accepting
absolutely.
of that.
Comment wherever you can. Contact us via the website.
Yeah.
And on the website, we'll have a new segment coming at ya called The Drunken Rambler, where we will go on tangents. We will be rambling about certain topics, just as a drunkard would do.
Yeah, so maybe after a few beers, I'll sit down in front of a computer and then just talk about my thoughts.
Little blurbs on life.
So the grammar might be terrible. We'll see how that goes.
Absolutely.
Haven't decided if we want to go through a secondary review process for that, or just to let it fly and then just see how obnoxiously bad it sounds.
Oh, I like that idea. Obnoxious and bad. So thank you guys for supporting the podcast and giving us a listen. If you feel so inclined, please rate and leave us a review on iTunes. It really helps drive our popularity. Don't forget to give us a follow on social media at My Shot of Life on Twitter and Instagram. And check out our YouTube channel, where in addition to iTunes and Stitcher, we will be posting our episodes every week. Feel free to reach out to us through our various outlets with comments and suggestions on future episode topics, as well as different drinks to try and to rate. MyShotOfLife.com is the place to see us.
Oh, man. You know what I totally forgot? I know you just did your sign-off.
Oh, gosh.
We didn't even review the whiskey.
We didn't.
Dude, I'm glad I brought that up, because people might be drilling us about this. What'd you think about it?
I like Blanton's. It is the first bourbon that I drank that got me into drinking bourbon. It's not as harsh as some bourbons
Sure.
are. It's not as sweet as I normally like a bourbon to be.
Yeah.
But it is what at least opened my eyes to the dark liquors.
I will say that after drinking that apple dog, man, I don't think anything can get as sweet as that. And that was some of the sweetest, and not sweet in a good way, whiskey that I've ever had.
Absolutely.
Now, this Blanton's was, with most whiskeys that I drink, I feel like once I get it diluted a little bit and the ice starts melting, that's when the flavor starts coming out more. And I liked it. I really did.
And remember, folks, the proper way to drink whiskey and bourbon is whatever way you like.
Exactly.
Don't let anybody tell you you can't get it on the rocks. You have to drink it neat. Don't let anybody tell you you can't add a little water to it like you do with
Vanilla.
the good scotch. Yeah, I wouldn't add straight vanilla, but drink it how you want to drink it. Don't fall to the tribalism of those
There you
pretentious
go, man.
bourbonites.
Well, way to wrap that up, Vic. I
Thanks.
think we would both recommend this whiskey. If you're at the store,
I give it a 4.5.
go and get you a handle or
4.6.
or a, what do you want to call that thing? A grenade?
Yeah,
it looks like
the shape of the bottle definitely looks like
a glass
a grenade.
grenade.
It can be tough to find. It is an extremely popular bourbon. Make sure to ask the people at the desk, or the counter rather, if they have it in the back, or like if you don't see it on the shelf, or get on a list that you can potentially, if you build up a good enough rapport, have them call you when they get it in.
Nice. So befriend your local ABC person.
Which, to those of you outside of North Carolina, ABC is the liquor store.
Yep. All right, guys, we're signing off. I'm Steven.
And I am Victor.
And always remember, drinks are always better with friends.